Hey everybody, welcome to Trading Capital's daily live stream of the market open. Today is currently March 28th, and as we kick off this trading session, as we will see, all the indices are down. The Russell, the Nasdaq, and the S&P are all opening lower and gapping lower today. So this could be leading to a broad market sell-off. It's a little bit too early to tell, but we also have some important 10 a.m. data, the consumer confidence. So certainly that could either spike yields a little more, cause the dollar to come up or down. So let's just pay attention to that 10 a.m. data. There are some stocks on the radar. On the short side, I'm looking at some China stocks. Baba is one of them. Obviously, they're branching off and basically spinning off their company into potentially 10 different little smaller companies. Obviously, the markets have liked that at this point in time, being the fact that Baba is up substantially in the pre-market session. Now, the overall theme with China stocks has really seen them gap up and crack to the downside. So I am looking at a short trade, but it's really a little bit farther up. I mean, we're talking about a pierce of $100 here around this dotted line, this red bar breakdown. So it's quite a ways off. It's about just under $5 away. So we'll just have to pay attention to that one. At this point in time, that's really the only trade that I'm looking at. Maybe Tesla for a long trade, but it would have to come down a little bit more. It is one of the mega caps that once again is showing positive strength, even though the market is gapping lower across all the indices. Right now, the dollar is a little bit weak today. Yields are kind of just flatlined on the neutral side. Crypto's taking a little bit of a breather as well. You have natural gas that is negative, but it is trying to bounce off of the lows. So we'll have to see if natural gas can kind of create that little bit of a push to the upside. Oil is also slightly flat. Energy stocks have slightly opened a little bit higher. So we'll pay attention to those aspects, because if oil catches a little bit of a rally, it should boost those stocks. And we may have a little bit of a play on the short side as well. Other than that, it's... we're just going to have to wait and see how these markets open, see if any opportunities fall into our laps, but it's just a matter of being patient at this point in time. Okay, so we do have Amazon down, Coinbase down, Meta is also seeing some pretty heavy sell side pressure, Apple's also down. So right now, I believe the Qs are leading. The index that's leading the downside is the S&P 500, so it's showing you that breadth in the market potentially is maybe grabbing hold, and all the yields just went positive, so let's just keep that in mind. Lumber's under pressure. Gold is slightly positive, so we can take a look at gold. Gold's actually caught a nice little bit off the lows. It's up 0.29%, but we'll keep our eye on the S&P 500 here. I'll go to the smaller time frame just so we can see what is transpiring, but basically we will be gapping down. I do have some buy levels on the S&P 500, but they are a little bit lower. This is just little day trade scalp levels, nothing that I'm sticking around in. Obviously, you can see some of the biggest movers there. Really, it's just a lot of the volume is trading in the mega cap tech. So we've outlined to our members that we were likely going to see a rotation of capital outside of communications and tech, and go figure, Meta is getting slammed hard. That's one of the heaviest stocks, over 20% weighting in the XLC ETF. And then obviously with the technology stocks like Apple, Microsoft, and Google, Amazon are all under some near-term pressure. And Microsoft actually put in a beautiful bear flag yesterday. I mean, just take a look at this. That is a picture-perfect bear flag. And you haven't triggered and broke it, but you're on the verge of doing so. And Microsoft is gapping lower. So if you get a close below this pivot here, it likely triggers this bear flag, and the downside would probably take you back down to 272. I would be interested in going long Microsoft just for a day trade scalp around this 272. Obviously pattern pending, but I am interested in potentially looking at that. We obviously are going to keep an eye on the IGV ETF. Cloud stocks have been looking a little bit more, they've shown a little bit more relative strength in this market, and there's actually a little bit of a bullish pattern that I went over with my members, and I have a variety of different names. I made a short list of about 10 names that I am paying attention to. If we take a look at the dollar, the markets are weak, even as the dollar's weak, but the dollar has had a nice move off the lows. and see a pretty hard sell-off, and now it has bounced back. So the big question is, can we start to get above this red bar high here? This red bar high is important because it was your last mini consolidation zone before you broke down. Now if you can recapture that, then you will likely target this pivot and then this red bar high. So we just need to see the dollar stair step its way up, and perhaps the consumer confidence number will spike the dollar, perhaps it'll drop it. Time will tell. 10 a.m. report. So just be mindful about any longs and shorts, because right now we're seeing the markets down as the dollar's down. Imagine what would happen to the markets, being the fact that the dollar's down already. If the dollar caught a bid, it would likely push those markets off the little bit off of a cliff here. All right, so just keeping our eyes here open for possible trade setups. Some of the banks like Deutsche Bank are under pressure. Let's take a look at this KRE ETF. So that's slightly down. Let's take a look at the XLF. That's slightly down as well. JPM. JPM's actually opening. Oh, no, it's just slightly down, but nothing crazy here. Nothing crazy. So notice how we're still just chopping in this range. We've still yet to make a move out of this range, and this is actually turning into a little bit of a bearish range, and that if you break to the downside, it could cause a big move to the downside at some point in time, but we're not there yet. We'll just continue to wait and see how things progress. So we have about 9 minutes till the market open. Right now natural gas is down. You have Meta down about 1%, AMD 0.5%, First Solar's flat, Apple's down 0.47. Again, Tesla's showing that relative strength. Now, one thing we have to keep in mind is what type of volume do we get? Yesterday was anemic. It was the lightest volume trading session of the year. So it's really interesting to note that even with the light volume, stocks could not hold up. Typically, there was a trend in 2022 where we saw light volume days, stocks mostly ended positive. Boeing's also down. That's a market leader. Oracle, market leader, very strong cloud stock, also down. But BABA's up 10.49%. Lithium batteries ETF is up. Volatility is just slightly up, but pulled off of the highs. Just scrolling through all of our little lists here. Wells Fargo's down. Coinbase is obviously down. And believe it or not, I do have a potential long day trade on Coinbase. The level I like on Coinbase is a pierce of 60 bucks. Basically around 59.20, 59.21. So if we can get a flush down on Coinbase into that level, I would be intrigued to maybe go long. It's high risk. I'm not planning on holding this overnight because of that Wells notice, potential admission of guilt, but I am paying attention to it. Meta's down more than 1% now, so communications are still seeing that rotation of capital out. You were well informed if you're a TC member. It's not a big sell today yet, but we'll just have to see if it turns into one or if the markets can catch a bid and reverse. So really, BABA's the only one. Let's take a look at this Yang. if you don't have the ability to short Alibaba as the trade we covered earlier, the Yang ETF, YANG, might be an opportunity to play. Basically, there's two little levels here. You can see the first one's around 924. That's more of the aggressive nature. More conservative would be this 869. So that isn't a Yang ETF. It's 3 times levered to China, but it does have a lot of BABA exposure, Baidu, and those specific stocks. So markets are still trickling down here. Natural gas is trying to build a little bit of a base, but still ever so weak. Maybe a 4-hour bottoming tail if it closes at these levels. Let's just discuss natural gas quickly. So natural gas is trying to have a little bit of a bid off the lows. If I'm looking at the 4-hour chart, which closes in about 34 minutes, you can see it's trying to put in a little bit of a bottoming tail, but it's still so weak. Still so weak. So we'll see if it can end with a bottoming tail on the 4-hour chart. That would be helpful because you have this little reversal signal from yesterday. The hourly chart shows it pretty clear where you engulfed it. I would love to see us hold that level because it was on the brink of basically closing below, but it is under pressure in the near term. So the dollar's trying to creep back up a bit. Just pay attention to that dollar. It just had a nice impulse move to the upside, closing at the high of the range. And now remember how I said we're looking to close above this red bar high around 102.60. Any little rally in the dollar is most likely going to continue to push the indices down. So really keep BABA on the radar. I'm watching it on my other screens here. That 100 level, it's quite a ways away. We have about 2 minutes and 20 seconds to the open. Alright, so let's see what we get here on the open. Let's just be patient today. Let's be mindful of that 10 a.m. data, the consumer confidence. And it's going to be really interesting to see if that data reflects any of the banking confidence. Don't think it will as of yet, but it could certainly be interesting to see where the consumer confidence comes in. Spiders are catching a little bit of a micro bounce here, about 1 minute till the open. I'm just going to switch all my charts to the regular trading session. So first level of support on the spiders, if we flush down, is around appears to 395. I have a level of 394.87. Then the next bigger level is around 394.17. Believe it or not, the max move down I have today is actually all the way down to 391.40. And the max move up today I have is about a pierce of 400. So there's quite a bit of a range there that we could trade in. Obviously data dependent. So let's get ready here. I'm going to keep BABA on the radar. Natural gas is coming back down. All right, so the markets are opening here. Spiders are coming down slightly. Trying to see if there's a little bit of a bounce though. Dollar's softening. BABA's still holding well. Spiders really haven't changed much. So we do have a buyable level on the spiders, guys. It's going to be around that 394.84. If we get a straight flush down, we can actually day trade the spiders long. So pay attention to that. Nvidia's softening. Tesla's gone negative. Bank of America's negative. AMD's positive. Apple's negative. A lot of negative stocks here on the radar. Natural gas is coming down again. KRE's just had a big dump, so the banks are under pressure again. KRE banks, regional banks. That's going to weigh on this market, and look at the spiders coming down now. So there's something lurking still in the banks. I'm seeing Microsoft triggering that bear flag. It's got a little bit more time to go. Heavy volume coming in. Take a look at BABA. That's still acting well. It's off of our level though. Baidu. So Baidu at this 160, we may have a short trade on Baidu. It's high risk because China is seeing money flows and the remainder of the market is not. But I do like that potential level at a pierce of 160. BABA's pushing up at 97 right now. It's interesting to note these stocks are declining, but volatility has gone nowhere. So definitely keep Baidu on the radar. BABA's on the radar. Nvidia's had a big dump. It's almost down 1%. Tesla's breaking a key level here. Let's take a look at the spiders here. I am eyeing up Amazon as well, maybe for a long, and that one's actually having better relative strength than the actual market. Qs are coming down. Russell's also coming down. So spiders. BABA's now seeing a reversal. AMD's seeing a reversal. Disney just announced more job cuts. Nvidia's finally making a little bit of a new low in the trend. If Amazon got down to 97, that's a long trade. Spiders are intriguing here. I'm actually intrigued by the spiders long. So spiders are coming into its first level of support. First level of support is at 394.84. That's what I have penciled in here. Qs are weak. Microsoft's weak. The dollar's still creeping up. Yields are softening slightly. And if Tesla were to flush down to 183, that's a long trade. It's still a ways away though. Nvidia is getting demolished here. Spiders are under heavy sell side pressure. So keep the spiders on your radar because we may have a long trade on the spiders. You can use a double levered. I'm just going to use single because of this volatility. But I am interested. It's not there yet. So spiders are getting a nice little bounce here. AMD's at the lows, Nvidia's still at the lows, so semis are still very, very weak. Semiconductors are still very, very weak. Nvidia's hitting a gap fill here, so it should have some near-term support. Spiders are bouncing, Qs are still lagging. See the remainder of the market. For solar, Baidu's pulled off the highs. Oil's caught a bid. Natural gas is still exceptionally weak. Maybe a 10-minute bottoming tail forming on the spiders. Nothing as of yet. So we're just waiting to see if there's any opportunities. AMD's at the dead lows. Apple's at the dead lows. Microsoft's pretty much at the lows, but catching a small little bounce. Spiders are catching a nice little bounce here now. Remember, 10 a.m. data, consumer confidence. Maybe they rally it into the 10 a.m. and then they smoke it down. Apple's still at the lows, so these markets are in trouble with Apple still lagging. A lot of sell side pressure still coming in on this market. You didn't hit my level of support on the spiders. I was looking for 394.84, so just missed that. So now, because we've bounced there ahead of time, you'd have to go a little bit lower, in my mind. Microsoft, look at Microsoft's breakdown. That's a beautiful breakdown. This is like a perfect technical breakdown. Bear flag, break. Look at that. So we actually may have a long trade on Microsoft if it flushes into this level. Keep that on the radar. Keep Microsoft on the radar. So the Qs are definitely the lagger today. Look at the Qs. A level I would consider going long on the Qs would be around 304.78. 304.78. Let me put that in here. 304.78. Markets are, Qs are down by 0.6%. Dollar's still trying to bounce slightly a little bit. Amazon's under a lot of pressure now. So is Nvidia. Qs are still coming down. Tesla's coming down. Nvidia's coming down. Microsoft's coming down. Big sell candles coming in here. Big sell candles coming in here. Gold's catching a bid. The banks are now catching a bid, so that's going to help the market. The banks are now catching a bid. I'm just looking to see which stocks I like for longs here. Amazon's still on the radar. Amazon's still on the radar. It's actually holding up relatively better than most of the mega caps. So that's a short-term positive. So clearly there's rotation of capital coming outside of tech. Qs are coming to a gap fill now. It's not the level I like though. AMD's at the dead lows. Definitely still keep Tesla on the radar. I'm still liking Tesla for a long, but it's not at the level yet. Nvidia's finally getting hammered, down 1.56%. That's our biggest short position, so we're certainly okay with that. Microsoft's also getting pummeled here. Spiders are trying to catch a bounce, but the Qs are still remaining weak. And these markets can't bounce much if the Qs don't bounce. Coin is catching a bounce. All right, I'm gonna go long coin with a stop below 61.30. So I just picked up some long coin at 62.50. 62.50. Take a look at this. We're already in the money 30 cents. It's pumping, it's pumping. All right, guys, I'm exiting coin here. 62.86. 62.86. It's just a small little 36 gain. It's one winner in the pocket. One winner in the pocket here. That was just a very quick one. Very quick. Very quick. And remember how we discussed the SMH triggering that head and shoulders pattern, which actually takes you down to about, what was the level? I think it was about down here, 244. So don't be surprised if these markets see a bigger sell. I mean, even AMD had its own, which is coming down. Target of the topping. So it hit our first target, but there's a bigger one at play. And if we look at the bigger one that's at play, it's using these pivots now. And that's basically 102.94. It's $8 move down. So that takes you to about 87 bucks. So right around this level. Now the spiders, let's see what type of consolidation we put in. Qs are still at the lows. Keep the NASDAQ on the radar because I like this 304.78 for a long. Yes, I do. Coinbase is coming back down. Amazon, Nvidia seeing hard sells. Microsoft, wow. All right, keep the Qs on the radar, guys, for a long here. QQQ, you can play the QLD, which is a levered. I might do the QLD. Actually, you know what? It's pretty volatile. I'm gonna just do the QQQ. But where I like it is right at this 304.78. Russell's catching a bounce. Microsoft's just getting demolished. Look at that bear flag breakdown. Wow. That is like so technical. These type of price action and patterns just make me happy when you just trust the technicals like that. Very intriguing to see that breakdown. Obviously you're getting a bounce here at the gap. I think it's going to slice through there. I think that was too easy of a trade to just be waiting there. The dollar's trying to creep up. And there's a variety of different names. You can play coin, you can play Amazon, you can play Apple, you can play Nvidia, you can play Microsoft. I'm going to stick to the Qs, just mitigate my risk. Spiders are catching a bounce here. Natural gas is under pressure. Russell's trying to bounce higher. Baba's faded from the highs pretty substantially there. Oil's trying to hold up. It's still under pressure. You can see the NASDAQ getting a bounce. Apple really hasn't participated, and neither has Microsoft. Microsoft level for a long is at 272.29. So we're almost at that gap fill on Microsoft. That is a potential long trade on Microsoft. Apple's trying to bounce. Meta's under a lot of pressure, but markets are trying to stabilize here and bounce. You're going to need the mega caps to bounce, but Apple's not really bouncing that much. Amazon's catching a good bid. It's so funny that we had just had a sell-off and volatility hasn't moved. That is not acting like it should. Qs are trying to bounce here. Nvidia is still at the lows. Yields are trying to perk back up. Gold has had a nice bounce. Microsoft's starting to bounce now. So is Apple. So is tech. Look at that fade on Alibaba. Spiders are still seeing if maybe we can get to this gap, but we need big cap tech to bounce to lift the spiders. Spiders can only do so much. If tech's not bouncing, they won't be able to get up there. Apple's now catching a bid. Take a look at Coinbase again, basically back down below our entry. I'm going to watch that one also for a potential long. So look at the Qs, they're bouncing pretty hard here. So keep Coinbase on the radar. Take a look at AMD, it's at the dead lows. It's not really participating in the bounce. So that's showing the weakness in SMH. We have about 13 minutes till the consumer confidence data. Microsoft's had a nice bounce. Tesla's still weak. Hopefully Tesla can get one more little flush because I am eyeing up another level here now. It's basically at these pivot lows here. You know, the bigger level that I do like is around this 183.28. 183.28, but this isn't a bad level here. If we can get another final flush down, spiders are now coming down. Qs are seeing some more weakness. Apple's pretty much at the lows. I'm still interested in the Qs at this level. We're just being patient. Lyft is outperforming the market, up 5%. BABA's still up 8%. Wow, take a look at this VKTX. Holy, I remember shorting that way back when. Thank goodness I'm out. Because look at that. And actually there is a short level here. Coming up right into this level. This is super high risk. But I am interested in shorting VKTX. This is a Viking Therapeutics, so it definitely has news. It's only 694 million market cap, so it's actually no, I'm going to stay away. I thought it was over $1 billion. I'm going to stay away. I thought the market cap on that was over $1 billion, and it's not, so too small for me. Too small for me. Apple's still trying to bounce, but AMD's at the lows. Amazon's catching a bounce. AMD's down 2.9. Snap is getting pummeled. Let's take a look at that IGV. That's actually trying to hold up positive and go positive. DocuSign. It's under a little bit of pressure. Just gonna check my little short list here. TNT. See, look at this powerhouse. Wow, in a weak market. And this is what I'm saying about these cloud stocks on the verge of a breakout. Take a look at that. That's a beautiful, beautiful breakout that is potentially occurring. What else do we have? TYL. That one's acting well, just slightly down. Snap is getting hurt today on the communication side of Meta, but I believe it or not, I do like this snap pattern. I do like Snapchat, maybe for a long trade. Big move down. Path. Apple's at the lows. Nvidia's at the lows. Microsoft has had a bounce. Path is holding up relatively well. Take a look at 10B. That one's still positive, or just slightly negative, sorry. Interesting. Spiders are putting in some bearish consolidation. Apple's still coming lower now, so this is weighing on the whole index. This level's still valid that I gave you. Maybe we can see a flush on Apple. Banks are still holding up. The dollar's starting to creep up now. So the Nvidia's at the lows, AMD's at the lows. But let's just be mindful that AMD is now triggering on an hourly chart a topping formation that takes you down to so AMD is coming down some more now. Dollar's popping. Take a look at this. So as the dollar continues to climb, it's going to show some certainly continuous weakness in the markets. Can we take out the lows on the Qs? So I'm seeing Bitcoin now starting to catch a bid. I'm going to take a look at coin again because it has been pummeled. I'm going to probably pick up some coin here. All right, I just went long coin 62.46, 16 position, 62.46. 62.46. I'll basically add at this low pivot here. So 62.46. So it's coming down. Bitcoin is creeping up though. Spiders are trying to push up. So there goes coin. Basically, I think the next resistance, considering we've had wicks here, we should be able to bust through that resistance and maybe challenge that red bar high there. So that's kind of my expectations on coin, which should be about a dollar move to the upside. So spiders are now pushing up. Could also take the Qs here as a long. I'm just long coin. Semis are still exceptionally weak. Let's go coin. Spiders are pushing up. My plan is to be out of this trade by consumer confidence time. So I'm going to look for basically anything over 70 cents here to a dollar. 70 cents to a dollar. Come on, let's see if we can get one more little push here now. It is pushing up. Bitcoin's catching a bid as well. Spiders are pushing. Qs are also pushing. Apple's still remaining weak. Ah, look at that little pullback. But the level's still valid because Bitcoin's trying to push up. Bitcoin just recaptured 27. So coin should have a little bit of a move higher now. You are stair-stepping your way up here. You are stair-stepping your way up. Microsoft's bouncing nicely. Apple's still remaining incredibly weak. So Apple's now, what was the market leader, it's dragging this market lower. Markets are now coming back down. Semis are still acting insanely weak. AMD is very, very weak. Apple's new low. Apple just made a brand new low. Coinbase is seeing some pressure as well. Take a look at the spiders. They're coming in. My next ad level on a coin would be basically at this low pivot here, 61.32. And then the stop out is basically closing below these 67. This pivot down here, 60.5. Apple's at the lows, Nvidia's still at the lows. Nat gas is trying to bounce slightly. I was hoping to be out of this trade by the 10 a.m. data because we have 2 minutes to consumer confidence. Alright guys, I'm going to take a small little loss on this trade because I don't want to stick around for this consumer confidence. So let's just see if we can get a slight little bounce. We have 3 minutes till the data. So I'm still holding it right now. Alright, I'm selling it here. 62.05 I just sold for a small little loss. Basically cancels out the first trade. Yeah, it's about a 31-cent trade on each end. So the first one was 36-cent win. This one was a 31-cent loss. So basically those trades canceled, but I don't want to stick around this market for that consumer confidence. So it's a small loss on that one. It cancels out the first trade. Still up 7 cents, but that's okay. So let's flip back to the Qs now, because the Qs are coming down. Nvidia is coming down still. Apple's now had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 green candles down in a row. First big support on Apple. I mean, you're only talking about, you're hitting some near-term support right now, but I would really say around 155, pierce of 155. Look at these markets coming in now, and that's is probably just due to the fact that Apple leading a big decline to the downside. AMD triggering a big pattern of failure here. Alright, consumer confidence in 1 minute. So this could be fast. I'm going to play the Qs. If we get a flush, I'm playing the Qs. If we get a flush, I will play the Qs. Consumer confidence should be out fairly shortly here. Let's see what the dollar does. We have 30 seconds. 30 seconds till impact. Apple's at the dead lows. Nvidia's at the dead lows. Coinbase is coming lower, so that was a good exit on coin. Sometimes even though you lose, it saves you. Alright, consumer confident in 1 minute or 3 seconds. Keep your eye on that dollar. I'm not seeing anything. Spiders are flat. Dollar's still flat. Q's maybe a micro bounce. Spiders are coming down. Q's, let's see if they break that pivot. Apple still at the lows, Nvidia at the lows, AMD at the lows. Things are just frozen. Spiders are coming. Oh, Q's, big consumer confidence, actual 104, so that's going to spike the dollar in yields. So let's see if we can get a flush down to here. So that was a nice little flush. Come on, let's see if we can get a flush on the Q's. They got bought right back up there. There were limit orders sitting there. Dollar's starting to perk up. Yields are starting to perk up. So consumer confidence came in higher than expected, which is not good for the market. Not good for the market. So we are printing money right now with our shorts, but I would love to see this market flush a little bit more. Come on. Dollars at the highs. Can the Q's get a close below this pivot? If we do get a close, we likely will flush a little bit lower. Apple's trying to bounce though. Markets are trying to bounce here though. Take a look at the spiders as well. They didn't break their pivot low. Let's take a look at coin. Because Coinbase is trying to bounce. Coin's down 2%. Apple's still at the lows. We could still flush lower here. I'm just trying to see if we are going to. QQQ. Still trying to fight that level. But it's not done. There's still 3 minutes in this candle. Apple's bouncing, so that's going to help this market. Baba's bouncing. Semis are still weak. Semis are exceptionally weak right now. Spiders are catching a bid though. So is the Russell. Apple's luring people in. I don't know if I'm buying this bounce yet. It wasn't that convincing of a reversal, although we'll see. Dollar's trying to creep up. Yields are pushing up now. It still hasn't really hit my downside level, but sometimes we don't get what we want. Meta's still under a lot of pressure. Spiders are bouncing pretty hard here. AMD's still at the lows. No bid on AMD yet. Although a little micro one's starting to come in. Dixie's still trying to push higher. Nvidia and Apple are now starting to bounce, so is Microsoft. Big bounce on the spiders. Will this bounce last though? Dollar's still at the high of the session. Let's take a look at IGV. That one's on the negative side. Look at Oracle. Oracle just made a new high, up 0.67. Super impressive move. Spiders are catching a nice bounce here. Coin is catching a bounce. Guys, I just got filled on coin, 61.37, 61.37. Just went long on coin again. Right at this pivot. Let's see if we can catch a bounce. The Qs are bouncing. The market is bouncing. Coin is still very, very weak though. Spiders are continuing to push, so is the Nasdaq. There goes coin. Spiders are pushing up, so is coin. Lots of resistance though and pressure. Bitcoin's trying to recapture 27. Apple's still trying to bounce. Bitcoin's trying to push up. We should get a little bit of a push up higher on coin here. Alright guys, I'm exiting coin here, 61.74. The markets look like they're running out of steam. That's a nice little gain, 61.74. 61.74. So that was about a 31-cent gain there. Look at that. That's why we don't stick around too long. We just got to get in and get out. So that was a nice little win on coin. So we traded that 3 times. And the only reason I got out is because the dollar was pushing up. The dollar was pushing up. So the Qs are under a little bit of pressure. So that's another win on coin. In and out. Just a very quick trade. And it's a reason I got out is because that dollar's starting to surge higher here, guys. It's just making new highs, which I don't want to stick around in. So basically, we're back to the winning side here on Coinbase with another win. So we've traded that 3 times today. 2 winners, 1 loss. Look at Amazon. Amazon's coming down hard now. So I'm going to keep Amazon on the radar because I do like that one for a long. I'm just interested maybe in Amazon. Let me just see on my other screen here. If Amazon was to flush down to 97, preferably a pierce of 97, we could go long. Dollar's pushing still. Apple's still holding up. So basically on Amazon, the level I'm looking at, hopefully we can get a pierce of this 97. Qs are still holding up. Spiders are pushing up. Dollar's still surging. Wow, so the spiders are surging along with the dollar. Looking like they want to attack that gap fill. The spiders pushed up into 397 here. 397.38, we can short it. And then you have a backup at that double top zone. So let's see what happens here. And this is only under the assumption that the dollar is going to remain strong. Bob is still up 8.5%. Tesla's still negative. Snaps down 4.68. Semis are bouncing well. Spider big bounce. Coin has had a nice big bounce, so if you're still in coin, you're even banking more profits than we did. Look at that big spider bounce though. Yields are pushing up. I just added to my UVXY. Spiders are still acting well. Big bounce on the spiders. Qs are bouncing, Russell's bouncing, the whole market has got a nice bid, yields are pushing, trying to make a new high. Oil's pushing up, so is natural gas. It's rallying with the whole market. So we're approaching the 10-11 time frame here. We've closed a couple winners in our pocket. Really nothing else I'm seeing on the radar as of yet. Don't be surprised if these markets head lower because there's potentially some inside bearish patterns occurring. Even on the spiders, the dollar's looking well equipped to move higher. Coinbase is pushing up. BABA's still fading. You have some weakness in gold starting to creep in, so maybe that's a little indication that the dollar is going to continue its ascent higher today. And again, the dollar is still negative on the session. So if the dollar climbs to the positive side, these markets could be in trouble. That's disappointing that the spiders didn't get to that gap. That's very, very disappointing. AMD had a phenomenal bounce. BABA's still fading. Banks are catching a nice bid. Natural gas is starting to creep back up. So can natural gas go to the positive side? It's almost there. Look at this little pump. Can we get a short squeeze going? Come on, nat gas. Get your butt up there. Get your butt up there. Here we go. Maybe we have a short squeeze. We clear these pivots here. Notice how it's been resistance here, resistance here, resistance here. We clear these pivots and we're going to attack most likely this 223 level. And you get through that, then I mean it's really only this pivot. It'll be interesting to see. Let's look at the daily chart on nat gas. Notice how, let me just remove this volume. Notice how nat gas is bouncing off of this key trend, this wedge pattern that we've been discussing for quite a while. It's got a lot of work to do though. It's got a lot of work to do. So the Qs are starting to bounce nicely, but Apple's remaining weak. And again, what that consumer confidence, the importance of that data is the fact that If consumers are confident, it just shows the Fed, okay, we still have a lot of ability to continue to tighten, and it's going to cause them to over tighten. Take a look at AR. AR's front running nat gas price up in a down market again. So this one's performing well today. Starting to build a nice little 3-bar surge, maybe with a bigger move coming. Really, it's starting to settle in. The volatility is being sucked out of this market. We're not really making a big move either way. Let's take a look at some of these energy stocks here. So XLE is up 0.91%, so that likely means XOM is pushing higher, up 1.1. It's actually into a decent little short level, but I'm not going to do it yet. Let's take a look at Chevron. That's also up nicely. How about Valero? That's up 2%. Take a look at the daily chart on this. So basically Valero is just chopping in this wedge. You can see it still has a little bit of room to go higher. Let's take a quick peek at Oxy, because obviously Warren Buffett just announced a big buy there. That one's up 2.26%. But believe it or not, this one's actually looking toppy. See this curling formation with the moving averages? It's actually looking a little bit more bearish. So spiders are continuing to push, going for that gap fill. They did fill that gap. Now the big question is, what do they do from here? What do they do from here? Pushing back to the positive side on the spiders. That gap was just filled. Now do we hold on? Yields are at the high of the day. Dollars pushing for the high of the day. Amazon's trickling lower. I find it interesting to see Amazon under a lot of pressure, even though it had relative strength yesterday. Meta's pushing up. That's had a nice bounce. Nvidia is continuing to bounce. That's a phenomenal bounce on Nvidia. Apple's also bouncing. Keep your eye on Microsoft, because this is starting to put in another little bear flag pattern here. So remember how we had this first one that broke down? Now you have another one that's potentially forming. And Microsoft actually has a bigger weighting. I believe it overtook Apple in the QQQ Nasdaq. So let's just pay attention to Microsoft, because that is a leader. And that is forming a bear flag. And notice how it's happening right over this gap. So there's going to be a lot of people that buy this area, and it will likely pierce through that level. Okay, so we'll just keep our eye on that. Bitcoin's starting to see some little bit of weakness. Tails are forming on the spiders. What's that telling us is that there are some sellers lurking there. Can the buyers overpower the sellers? It's approaching that 10:19 time frame. Tesla's still negative. AMD's down 2.4. Lyft is faded from the highs. Snapchat's bounced off of the lows. Intel's negative. Google's down 1.42%. The weakness is still clearly in tech. Nat Gas. Hopefully Nat Gas can clear these major pivots at 221. Yields are pushing up, so the 2-year yield is starting to surge higher here. That's likely only going to strengthen the dollar. So yields, keep your eye on yields, because if yields break out past this red bar, I mean, you're likely going to push to 4.25. And that would make sense with the consumer confidence coming in better than expected. It gives that Fed and the bond market the reason to keep tightening. Keep tightening. Nice little down candle on the spiders coming back in now. You're also seeing that across tech. Metas has an hourly bottoming tail that it's fighting. Big dump on the spiders. Baba's still fading off of the highs. Those regional banks are still holding up well. JP Morgan's still bouncing. Let's take a look at Boeing, BA. Look at that surge on Boeing. Jesus, what a powerhouse. That's on some news today that Canada may use them for their fleet. The only real short level I see on Boeing would have to be this intersection at Pierce of that 50. So we'll keep our eye on that. I'd actually consider that. Let me just draw in a trend line here. So if Boeing went straight into that 208.45 level, we could short it. Yields are still pushing higher. Well, I am going to call this stream to an end here. My voice is a little bit scratchy today. I need to rest it, which is why I haven't been talking as much. But definitely be careful. If the spiders take out the lows, then we obviously will. It'll be more vulnerable to coming down to this 393 level. And the way yields are trying to move to the upside here, let me just check the long end ones. Yeah, so you have all the long and the short end yields moving up in tandem. So definitely be mindful of that. But with Apple and tech being exceptionally weak, they obviously hold the highest weighting, which could drag the whole market down. And that's kind of what we're seeing along the lines of Microsoft and Apple. They are putting in bearish consolidation. So just be careful about holding on to longs in this market, especially when bearish formations are setting up. Not saying you can't get longs. There are certainly pockets of strength in this market. But with semis and Apple and Microsoft weak, that's definitely a headwind in this market. On that note, congrats on the couple winners that we did get today. Obviously, we did have one loser, but 2 of 3. That's still a net profit in our pocket. So congratulations, awesome job, and we'll see you on the charts tomorrow. Thank you all for tuning in. Take care, everybody.